What up everyone, it's your man XMan87 here, bringing you another Marvel Legends video, and what I have for you today is the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Marvel Legends Spider-Man the Animated Series VHS Spider-Man vs. Vulture 2-pack review. Before we get into everything, if you could please leave a thumbs up, like, rating on the video, it'll help show your support for my channel and I greatly appreciate it. Now with that said, let's go! Gaga! Alright man, I don't know why they had to use this outdated 8-year-old Sunfire Buck. I mean, look, the last time they did the animated series Spider-Man, they used the Amazing Fantasy body, but it was cel-shaded. This one, I get why they went with this kind of Buck for the physique, because if you guys recall, the Spider-Man animated series, he was buff. He was a buff-looking Spider-Man, so they couldn't go with this one because it's too small. I get it, but... big but here, why didn't they go with the retro Spider-Man Buck? And they just didn't go with that, because that would have been the perfect torso to use. And keeping the limbs pinless right here, that would have updated that Buck. I mean, man, we just got that retro torso used earlier this year with Spider shit. So I don't understand why they couldn't just go with that articulation, man. I mean, they could have went with Renew Your Vows, but this one has more width. But like I said, that retro Spider-Man Buck has that same width as well. So this guy would be a little too tall, Renew Your Vows. Actually, you know what? I always said the Renew Your Vows Buck is too tall for Spider-Man. But then looking at it side by side, I mean, how many times they use this Buck for Spider-Man? It's almost the same size, honestly. For some reason, I thought it was taller. Anyways, oh man, that would have been nice if it was on that updated articulation, because the red and blues are just perfect on this guy. I mean, it's perfect. That's why I'm conflicted with this figure. It's the perfect red and blue combination, almost as good as the Amazing Friends one. I think this is still the perfect red and blue combination. Maybe this one is, I don't know. I could go either way. Either one of these. They definitely improved their blue and red combinations, because I know for the longest time, either the blue would be too dark and the red would be too light, or vice versa. Sometimes they would get the perfect red, but not the blue. You know what I mean. Being already pinless, he would have been perfect with that retro Spider-Man torso, and also if they gave him wall crawling hands, it would have been perfect. I just don't know why. And it just feels like a throwaway Spider-Man here in this pack. And again, I don't want anyone making excuses saying it wasn't in the budget. Like I've said multiple times, I'm not making excuses for Hasbro. I don't care what comes out of their pockets. I care what comes out of my pocket. And I really don't like that there's a peg hole on the back of the logo. That just completely kills the logo for me, man. The peg hole being on the back of the spider logo, that should never happen. I do like how they have the black tracing around the spider. That looks cool. However, the spider legs are painted on the shoulder joints, so that may annoy some, because that can definitely disrupt the logo. It just breaks it up, and I think they could have fit it within the back part of this. Just looks weird. The spider logo looks great. The head sculpt, man, that's probably my favorite part of this figure, is the head sculpt. And I really, really like the animated series head sculpt for this. It's just so nice. These shoulders are wonky as hell. Like, look at that gap. That's terrible. It looks like someone just hack and slashed his freaking shoulders. Like, not even the retro Spider-Man has shoulders with that kind of gap. You see that? Like, what the hell is that, man? That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Not even Amazing Fantasy has that. That's just bad. Again, this is the updated Sunfire Buck with the pinless limbs. I think this was first used for Blur in the Squadron Supreme 2-pack. Again, the red and blues are perfect. Again, I have no problems with the red and blues. It's beautifully done. Beautifully done. Let me spread the shoulder joints out here. You can see the cobwebbing kind of breaks up right there. Not that much of a big deal for me. The red on the belt here doesn't match the torso. It's a little bit off in the color tone, but not really much to notice. The blue plastic on the torso is slightly lighter than on the arms and the legs. But yeah, other than that, the cobwebbing paint on this is really solid. He's got his fist as default hands. Again, that head sculpt is my favorite. Now for accessories, he does come with an alternate Peter Parker head, and it is indeed the same Peter Parker head that came in the Smythe 2-pack, except the brown here is a little more saturated, and he has that lipstick thing going on here, so that's the only bummer right there. And he has a little more color in his skin tone. This one looks very paled. We get another alternate head, and we get a first ever Flash Thompson head, and that looks pretty freaking good, I'm not gonna lie. I like the head sculpt. There's some wash in his hair. It's a good expression. This is on the Peter Parker Retro series. The skin tone doesn't match. However, let me try to put this guy in a tracksuit, and I think this works. Yeah, the skin tone matches here. So you could do something like that. Put Flash in a tracksuit. That would work. At least in my opinion. You can pull it off. And the best option to put this head on is on the Agent Venom body, and this just looks so badass. Even if the head sits a little bit low on the body, it's okay, it's passable because he's in a symbiote suit, and a lot of times when you see guys in symbiote suits, you know, their head looks a little bit tiny, or they look like they have no neck because the symbiote is just too damn big. Yeah, this looks so good. He also has alternate thwipping hands. And lastly, he has alternate gripping hands, and the accessory that piqued my interest the most is this removable mask, and I love it. You know, he gets to hold the mask. This is something I've always wanted in a Marvel Legends Spider-Man. Something to display Peter Parker holding his mask, and it looks really, really good. The paint job here is well done. At least on my copy. There's a little splotch right there, but you know, whatevs. But yeah, this little hook right here you see, you just got to make sure it goes like right in between the thumb and the index finger. Otherwise, if you try to like leave it hanging on his fingers right here, you know, it's just gonna keep falling. Make sure you do what I recommended. Also, I hate the fingernails through gloves. Does anyone else hate that? I can't stand that. Or you could just have him hold the mask with both gripping hands. That's a lot easier. And of course, the biggest crime in this set is not including a set of wall crawling hands for Spider-Man. So you'll have to dig into your Spider-Man accessory stash and give him some hands that can match the red color tones on this body. Skipping articulation as we know what to expect, but the accessories is the real winner here, minus not including wall crawling hands. All the heads here are winners. People that passed on the Smythe pack will finally get their animated Parker head. Flash Thompson for Agent Venom. The gripping hands and the mask for him to hold will create a lot of play value. I'll go over more on my wrap up, but for now, it's a 5.5 out of 10. Vulture here is definitely the prize of the pack, and I'll be honest with you, they've done a lot of cartoon figures so far, and this is by far one of their best cartoon figures they ever made. And he's almost perfect, almost, and I'll get into the imperfections, but looking at him head on, he looks like he just jumped straight out of the cartoon. He looks so good. I love the color tones of the green, the combination of, you know, that dark green and the two light greens. You even get that kind of metallic sheen of a green there on his gloves and on some parts of the harness. He looks so good, and I always said this is my definitive Vulture. Like most of the Spider-Man animated series characters looks, they're just, you know, my definitive looks. Way better than the classic one. My god, this blows this one away. But the most important thing for me to tackle first are the wings, and I remember when I did my PulseCon recap in that video, I did mention that the wings are severely undersized. You know, they are not animated series accurate whatsoever, because, I'll provide an image for you here. Those wings were huge. I mean, they were really, really huge. And I did say you can make the argument that they looked a little small in some scenes because, that's to make it easier for the animators to play with some perception. But I get why they went with these wings because they do look closer to the cartoon more than anything. I remember when these wings were first revealed for this Vulture, I'm like, wait, they look more like the animated series wings because they don't have sculpted feathers on them. It has those blades pretty much like the animated series. The animated series had these wings that had blades on them, and that's what it looks like. I mean, from the front, there's supposed to be like 2 rows of blades here, and while you do get some of that sculpted, it's not all the way. It's like it fades and doesn't really complete the look. And again, his wings are supposed to go to his back, but I can see why that might have, not worked. I guess this was the best option. I mean, having it in hand, it doesn't really bother me. My big worrisome is just like the last Vulture, these things pop off easily. So yeah, you see that? It just fell off. And I'm not really noticing that since I played with this figure. So far, so good. And I'm happy about that. But another thing that's very impressive, all new sculpt, man. All new sculpt from scratch here. This is a new buck we're looking at. I thought it was Superior SpiderMan at first. It wasn't. There's a lot more bulk on this guy. And if you don't believe me, I'll bring this guy out. And yeah, it is very different. These things are in the way, but as you can see, there's a lot more mass to this guy. He's got a great build. I like this physique a lot, but let's take a closer look at this head sculpt. I love this young Vulture look. I love the hairstyle that they did right over the headdress, and as you can see, the hair poking out on the bottom underneath the headdress looks good. I really like this green metallic molding that they used, and it's not like it looks bad like any of the gold plastic metallic molding that they use for some reason. I think it just doesn't work with gold and maybe silver, but for this green it looks really nice. And again, great head sculpt, new torso right here. And correct me if I'm wrong if this is an all-new buck, but it looks like an all-new sculpt from scratch. I'm 100% confident it's an all-new sculpt from scratch. I'll be surprised if it was reused. You can see some of that metallic green, new sculpt here with the gloves and the hands. You get some panel linings right there on the fingers, so that is neat. Nice looking harness. Got his blaster there. Unfortunately, I got some paint rubbed there. That sucks. You can see his belt with the capsules on it. That looks good. Alright, looking at the back here. He's just a great looking figure. And the thigh straps right there. More capsules right there. The only thing right here that bugs me is the proportions. So the thigh gap is a little gappy. It is. But also the hips stick out outwards. Like so, you see that? They stick out very far. Reminds me of the MCU Wolverine from the Deadpool and Wolverine movie figure where the hips just stick outward like that. Damn. You're not going to notice when you put them in some awesome flight poses, but vanilla stance, I definitely noticed that. The legs look great. They just needed to close that gap in a little bit more. There's no drop down thighs or anything like that. But the rest of the sculpt looks great. Very muscular legs. Like, look at these legs. They're very muscular. And I believe these are new feet as well. And they look great. For accessories, he comes with the Old Man Vulture head. I like this Adrian Toomes head. It looks really, really good. You get the headdress there. Again, he's just bald. And, in the cartoon, he would suck the life force out of people, which helps him stay young. And I like this head sculpt a lot. Also, he has alternate hands with his claws out. I really like the design on the hands because those panel lining looks like almost like the scales of a vulture. So it kind of resembles a vulture's talon. That looks so cool. Comparing the Adrian Toomes head sculpt together, this is not a bad head sculpt. It was crazy that he had the liver spots, but now that they're giving us all new sculpts for comics and cartoon figures, it's time to really update this guy. Give him that old man looking body, you know, with the hunchback, and, you know, give us the texture linings on the suit, because this was just painted on. It didn't look right. Give us actual sculpted feathers for wings, because this piece of Spidey Buck is not it for a classic Vulture. But that's it for accessories for Vulture. I think they're acceptable. One of my regular viewers, Tyler Lalonde, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, he did bring up a good point that it should have included the Tablet of Time. And I'm like, oh, that would have been a really good accessory. And I love when Marvel Legends adds artifacts as accessories. Like, I'm a sucker for artifact accessories. So that would have been a nice bonus to have. But yeah, like I said, guys, this is my definitive Vulture. I know you guys have your own definitive Vultures. I know, you know, a lot of you will say the comics, but before I got heavily into the comics, the cartoons is what I was exposed to first. So therefore, a lot of those designs are my definitive versions of those characters. So therefore, this guy will definitely replace this guy easily on my shelf. Alright, now for articulation, his head is on a disc hinge, which is perfect for flight. And the hair right there doesn't even hinder the articulation there, so I love it. And then the head looks that far down, left, right, some slight pivoting. His arms move about that far up. You are going to get a straight T-pose. You should get a little bit higher, you know, slightly higher, I would say. Oh, yeah, never mind. What am I talking about? That's super important for Vulture, especially if you're going to, you know, work around some of those poses. That is extremely important. Up and down, you got the bicep swivel, double jointed pinless elbows, and they do have some good range. Let me move that a little bit further up so he could touch his chin. All right, that's awesome. Wrist swivel and the wrist hinge. You got his ab crunch that moves that far forward and that far back. You got the hardline waist swivel, which not a lot of people will be a fan of this. The way that sticks outwards like that, not a good look. His legs can spread that far apart, as you can see, almost a full split. It's really good. And he could get a full frontward split as well. You got his legs that can rock around, and you got the thigh swivel right here, right underneath the thigh strap, which is nice. And double jointed pinless elbows. And notice how I'm articulating the figure. The wings have not fallen off on me, where if I touch this with the slightest, you know, just the slightest touch would make these wings fall off. But yeah, almost heel to the Vulture butt right there, and then his ankles can move up, down, and you can rock them all around. This Vulture is one of my favorite cartoon figures they've ever done. Even with some of its imperfections, I can look past it. Looks like he flew straight out of the cartoons, no pun intended. And it's one of those figures with all heads that one won't be left out, as both will be used back and forth. I'm giving Vulture a strong 8 out of 10. Let's get into some comparisons. While I don't have the cel-shaded Spider-Man animated figure, I have the Amazing Friends in its place since it shares the same buck. And it never made sense to me that Peter Parker was bigger, making him look like he shrunk in the suit. This Parker works better next to this new Spidey animated figure, as it's a more realistic and believable scale. Here is Spider-Man next to the animated series Mary Jane Watson. Here is the animated series Vulture next to the comic version of Vulture. Last but not least, here's the Spider-Man animated series roster that I do have in my collection: Spidey, Daredevil, MJ, Aunt May, Vulture, Morbius, Doc Ock, Smythe, and Hydro Man. And while I don't have everyone from the VHS series, what I have here is coming along nicely. And now to wrap things up, my final rating as a collective is a 6.75 out of 10. So to go over this Spider-Man, I feel like Hasbro did a lot of right things, but on the wrong body. Making him pinless, giving him the perfect red and blues, an amazing head sculpt, the accessory I've always wanted for him being a mask for him to hold, good selection of heads, all that effort to throw it away on an outdated buck. That's what frustrates me the most. The Flash Thompson head is a great option to put as an imposter Spider-Man or for your Agent Venom. I held a vote poll on my Instagram about the Flash head on the Agent Venom body, and most of the votes don't seem to like it. Don't know why, but I don't mind it. I kind of dig it. Anyways, all this needed was the retro torso and wall-crawling hands, and it could have been one of their best classic Spider-Man offerings. Animated series Vulture was one of my most desired villains for the animated series line next to Chameleon. Not having the cartoon accurate wings did bother me at first. I still stand by that they should be bigger, as they are undersized, but it's not bothering me as much as I thought it would. The various green color palettes are keen to the eye. No complaints on articulation, but I will say he needed shoulder rockers. Proportions are a little rocky around the hip region, but doesn't ruin the figure completely for me. The accessories are acceptable, as the old Adrian Toomes head was a must inclusion for the set. Again, I think this is one of their best cartoon figures executed. Overall, not one of their worst VHS packs. They don't rob you off accessories like that stupid Morbius 2-pack. It's slightly above average at best, but you'll have to settle for an underwhelming Spider-Man to get this damn good Vulture figure. Which some might not mind, because some collectors love to have a classic Spidey suit on different bucks. The accessories in this set and Vulture is what sold me, as I'll find a lot of use for them. Not sure if it's worth the $50 to you, but if this is something that goes on clearance, then I'd say grab it, but act fast if you plan on it, because I'll be real with you, Spidey in his classic suit sells instantly. That's if it even gets a clearance before it sells out. I can't predict sale clearances, but I surely expect this one to not last long. This will be a pass for strictly comic fans, but the hardcore animated series fan base, like myself, will for sure jump on this, as next year we are getting more, so it's getting closer to roster completion because it looks like Hasbro is going all out with the Spider-Man animated series. Now I kick it back to you. What do you think of this 2-pack? Is this something on your radar? What packs would you like to see next year for the Spider-Man VHS line? Comment below, let me know, we'll chat about it. Thanks for watching another review. Please follow me on Instagram if you haven't already at xmanny87. Hit the notification bell so you always know when my latest videos are up. Share and subscribe if you're new. See you on the next review. Peace, peace.